there's something nobody talks about. That moment when you have everything you need to start something important. And you still don't move. You open the laptop. You close it. You write the first sentence. You delete it. You tell yourself you'll begin after this next episode. After this snack. After you feel ready. And then the day ends. And you lie there in the quiet dark, wondering what is wrong with you. Wondering why everyone else seems to move through life with some kind of momentum. You can't seem to find. You've been calling it laziness. You've been carrying that word like it's your identity. But I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because what you're about to hear might be the most honest thing anyone has ever told you. Identity reframe. Here's what's actually happening. Somewhere inside you, beneath the procrastination, beneath the avoidance, beneath the stillness that looks like inaction from the outside, there is something you are afraid to feel. Not afraid of failure exactly. Not afraid of success exactly. Something deeper. Something older. A feeling so uncomfortable that your entire nervous system has quietly, without your permission, built an elaborate system of distractions just to keep you from touching it. This isn't weakness. This is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. Protect you. The problem is, it's protecting you from the wrong thing. Psychological explanation. In psychology, there's a concept called emotional avoidance. It's not a character flaw. It's not a personality defect. It's a survival mechanism that got stuck in the wrong gear. When we experience emotions that feel too big, too threatening, too painful, too uncertain, the brain does something fascinating. It reroutes. It finds another road. Scrolling, sleeping, cleaning, watching, eating. Anything that keeps the body busy and the feeling at arm's length. Neuroscientists have found that emotional pain activates the same regions of the brain as physical pain. Think about that. When you're avoiding a difficult project, a hard conversation, a dream that matters too much to risk failing at, your brain is treating that discomfort the same way it would treat a hand reaching toward a flame. It pulls back. Not because you are broken, but because your brain believes the feeling on the other side of that action will hurt you. And somewhere along the way, maybe in childhood, maybe in a classroom where you raised your hand and were laughed at, maybe in a relationship where you tried and were rejected, you learned that certain feelings are unsafe. So now, every time you get close to something meaningful, the avoidance begins. Not laziness. Protection. Powerful metaphors. Think of your mind like a radar system on a ship. Its entire purpose is to scan the horizon for threats. And it is extraordinary at its job. But sometimes, the radar picks up something on the screen. And it can't tell the difference between a hurricane and a sunset. It registers both as danger. So the ship stops moving. It sits in perfectly calm water, engines running. Going nowhere, not because the captain is lazy, but because the system is reading the horizon wrong. You are the captain of that ship. And the radar has been misfiring for a long time. Here's another way to see it. Imagine you have a wound, not on your skin, but somewhere inside. An old one. Maybe you don't even remember where it came from anymore. And life keeps handing you beautiful things, opportunities, dreams, relationships. But reaching for them requires moving your arm in a way that stretches the wound. So instead, you stay very still. You call it laziness. But it isn't laziness. It's the body guarding the place that still hurts. And one more. Procrastination is not the absence of effort. It is effort, enormous, exhausting. Invisible effort, spent keeping a feeling contained. Every person who has ever called themselves lazy and truly believed it was spending more energy managing their inner world than most people spend doing actual work. The tiredness you feel, that's real. It's the cost of containment. Emotional validation. I want to say something directly to you now. If you have spent years believing there is something fundamentally wrong with you because you can't seem to just do the things you want to do, I want you to let that go for a moment. Just for right now. You didn't choose this. Nobody sits down one day and decides to build an internal wall between themselves and their own potential. It happened quietly, slowly, in small moments that accumulated into a pattern. And because the world doesn't talk about emotional avoidance, because the world prefers the simpler story of laziness and discipline and hustle, you absorbed the wrong explanation. You turned inward and blamed the most tender parts of yourself. And that blame made everything harder. Because shame is not a motivator. Shame is a sedative. The more you tell yourself you are lazy, the more the nervous system shuts down. The more it avoids. The more the cycle deepens. You were not failing at discipline. You were succeeding at self-protection in the only way you knew how. Practical insight. So what do you actually do with this? Not a list. Not a system. Not a productivity hack. Something quieter than that. The first thing is simply this: the next time you notice yourself avoiding something that matters to you, pause before the judgment. Don't ask, "Why am I so lazy?" Ask instead, "What am I afraid to feel if I do this?" Sit with that question, really sit with it. Because underneath most avoidance, there is an emotion waiting to be named. Fear of being seen and found lacking. Grief over time already lost. The terrifying vulnerability of caring about something deeply. The old story that says you don't deserve the good thing. When you can name the feeling, even imperfectly, something shifts. Not dramatically, not overnight. But the feeling loses a fraction of its power. Because our nervous systems don't fear named things the way they fear unnamed ones. The monster in the dark is always bigger than the one you can see. The second thing is smaller than it sounds. Begin before you're ready. Not in the loud, motivational speech way. Not as a command to yourself, but as a gentle, almost experimental act of curiosity. What would it feel like to write just one paragraph? To send just one email? To spend just 5 minutes with the thing you've been circling? Not to conquer the avoidance, just to sit next to it. Because the goal right now is not productivity. The goal is to teach your nervous system, one small experience at a time, that the feeling on the other side of action is survivable. That reaching for the thing doesn't have to destroy you. That you can feel uncomfortable and still be okay. This is how trust is rebuilt, not through willpower, but through accumulated evidence. Small moments repeatedly survived. Cinematic conclusion. You have been living with a story about yourself that was never quite true. A story that turned your sensitivity into a flaw. Your caution into a character defect. Your very human need to protect yourself into proof that you were less than others. But you were never less, you were never lazy. You were a person carrying something heavy and trying, in the only ways you knew, not to drop it. And now, maybe for the first time, you can see it for what it is. Not a life sentence, not a fixed feature of who you are. A pattern, a learned response. Something that began as protection and outlived its purpose. And patterns, unlike character, can change. Not because you force them, but because you finally understand them. There is something waiting for you on the other side of this avoidance. Not perfection. Not some transformed version of yourself with all the answers. Just the quiet, steady feeling of moving toward the things that matter. Of being in motion again. of trusting yourself, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely, with the life you actually want. You were never the problem. You were always the person who cared too much to risk being wrong about the things that mattered most. That kind of depth doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be understood. And now, in some small way, it is. Soft CTA. If something in this felt familiar, if you recognized yourself in the avoidance, in the weight of a story that was never really yours, there's something else worth sitting with. Why the most emotionally intelligent people are often the most misunderstood. It connects to everything we talked about here. And it might help you understand not just your patterns, but the deeper architecture of how you move through the world.